Okay, so you know I had to get in on this Tiffany Haddish fiasco. So Tiffany Haddish is in the news right now because she bombed at her New Year's Eve performance in Miami. So she has been creating a lot of internet buzz about her whack performance. And I watched the clip a couple of times and I have to agree, it was horrible. It was so cringe-worthy. I was embarrassed for her. You know what they call that, what, secondhand embarrassment? It was terrible. So I'm just going to get into her chart, talk about what I see, talk about the contributing factors that led to up to that night, and I'm going to get into her transits to pinpoint what's going down, like what was going down that night, as well as what's going down right now. So Tiffany Haddish, as you can see, is a Sagittarius. She was born December 3rd, 1979. And that makes her a 3 in terms of her birth number. 3 is very much like Sagittarius energy. It vibrates to Jupiter. So someone born as a Sagittarius alone is good for comedy, but if they are born on the 3rd, that compounds the theme of comedy. So it makes a lot of sense that being a comedian is her profession of choice. So that 3 birth number basically compounds the themes of Sagittarius. So it's like she is a very strong, hardcore Sagittarius simply because she has her sun in Sagittarius and she's born on the 3rd. She also has her Neptune in Sagittarius, and that can point to issues with addiction because it's conjoined to her sun. It's a healthy distance away, but Neptune's influence is so strong that it's still playing out in her life, if you ask me. Now, that Neptune on her sun, or I'll say close to her sun, can not just deal with addiction, but that can lead to situations where she is humiliated or where she brings humiliation upon herself. So I'm not surprised that she had this situation, especially when you take into account that Neptune is ruling her 3rd house. The 3rd house deals with the conscious mind, also deals with communication. So her sun is in the 11th, which is really good for attracting a large following, attracting a large fan base. But her Neptune is in the 12th house. And that 12th house Neptune is reinforcing addiction. Also, since Neptune's in Sagittarius, the theme of excess is pronounced, especially with respect to intoxication, drugs, alcohol. So, one of the contributing factors, I believe, for her doing such a horrible job on New Year's Eve was that she had been hitting the bottle pretty hard. So, with her Pisces South node, she's just naturally inclined towards addiction. So she could be battling addiction, and that could be one of the problems that surfaced that night. Now, what's interesting is her life path number is 32. That breaks down to 5. 32 is the number of communication, but 32 also represents her growing up in the foster care system. Her being a Sagittarius brings the theme of foster care into view because Sagittarius rules foster care, also adoption. So the fact that she's born on the 3rd, like I said, it reinforces that theme. And then add into the fact that her life path number is 32, that can deal with adoption, foster care as well. In her case, foster care, because if you break that 32 down and you take the 3 would be the foster care part, and the 2 would be the home. Now, as you can see, her sun is opposed to the moon. And that right there can deal with where her personality does not match her image or it's at odds with her image. And also, you could look at that as her private life, her home life is at odds with her image. So, this opposition right here can be kind of like bipolar to some extent, but you would need to look at other aspects to really basically say, yeah, this person got bipolar tendencies. But I'm also looking at this opposition, especially when you take into account that the moon rules the 7th house, that this being a ghostwriter that she has, or maybe not even ghostwriter, because comedians, it's known that they'll have writers for their stand-up. Some of them, write their own material. Others, they write, but they have contributors. But it seems like Tiffany Haddish basically is not writing any of her material. She's basically outsourcing it as evidenced by this opposition between the sun and the moon, especially because the moon is in Gemini. That deals with writing, communication, and the mind. And the moon is ruling the seventh house. This is other people. So you could look at this opposition as her basically using other people's jokes, other people's material. So that's one of the reasons why she probably forgot her lines. So she forgot her lines at one point during that comedy performance. And that could deal with that because maybe she was just handed a script and she didn't memorize the script. And then combine the fact that she was hitting a bottle, perhaps. That's a, recipe for disaster if you're a stage performer. Now, also this opposition between the sun and the moon does point to her upbringing. And again, her growing up in the foster care system. So with sun opposition moon, this is somebody that could have been moved from home to home. There, was a lack of stability within the home, lack of security. Especially again, when you take into account that the moon rules the seventh. This is other people, but this can also deal with agencies. And also where there's some type of intervention that took place within the home, early home environment. Also, her sun is in square to Mars, Jupiter, and the North Node. Her sun is also in square to the South Node. So this hookup right here is showing that she has issues, again, with her self-image. And a lot of times when it comes to her identity, it's something that is not really dealing with who she is part of her work because Mars is in Virgo. So this is the type of person that can't be on all the time. Like there's going to be times, especially when they're stressed out, that it's going to be hard for them to be on. And be on in her sense, sense of the word would be being funny, being that jokester, being that lively personality that, uplifts other people. So if you saw that clip of that comedy performance on New Year's Eve, you'll see that she was not the typical Tiffany Haddish, where she was all lively and upbeat and all that type of stuff. So you can also see this square between this Virgo stellium and her sun as pointing to issues with her helping people. And one of the interesting things was during that performance, she started bitching and complaining about her having to help out family, in particular her sister, which is very interesting. Now, so Virgo in the eighth, the stellium in Virgo. In the eighth, this is her, you could look at this as her basically helping other people financially. And then if you look at Uranus, Uranus is conjoined to Mercury. Uranus rules the second house of money. Mercury rules siblings. So there it is, that sister that she speaks about, because she, during that performance, she was talking about how her sister asked her for a refrigerator. And she was like, what would you do if I didn't have money or whatever? And then she was like, I would buy a cooler. So she basically made a joke about, oh, so she bought her a cooler from Amazon or whatever like that, which was like totally, it wasn't even funny. But there was some truth in that. And that's evident by Mercury in Scorpio. Scorpio could deal with financial support, being conjoined to Uranus. Uranus ruling the second house. She got her sister and maybe some relatives always in her pocket. And after a while, it's starting to really get to her, as evidenced with this square between the Virgo stellium and her sun in Sagittarius. Now, Sagittarius is one of the most generous signs of the zodiac, but even Sagittarius has their limits, and she definitely has her limits with this square. Again, the eighth house theme, that's financial support, so it echoes this Scorpio influence. 10th house, this shows that her relatives, her sister, they're dependent upon her career. But this can also show that Tiffany Haddish is using her experiences with her sister and maybe other relatives to basically um, be part of her act, her comedy act, but it didn't go over well. So again, you could look at this opposition between the sun and moon as her not really having her own material. So when she falters, when she basically forgets her lines, she's going to go back to what she knows. So she's going to talk about like how she talked about the book that she wrote, but she personalized it and said, well, I wrote the book so I could get in touch with this dude that I used to deal with, which was so weird for her to say that. And then this can also deal with her basically just airing her family's dirty laundry. Her basically broadcasting her family's dirty laundry, and that's like paybacks. As a paybacks, look, the sun rules the eighth house, revenge. That's like paybacks. This is also another financial support opposite aspect, because if you take the moon representing the family, the sun ruling the eighth house, financial support, joint finances. So yeah, but it's like when she forgets her lines, she will just go for her family member's juggler, or she'll even go for her own juggler by talking about her own self in a denigrating way. Like she was like, I should go back to what was she saying? I should go back to jerking dicks or something in cars, or it was so weird. And Gemini rules cars. Interesting with her moon and Gemini, her saying that. But another thing that I wanted to talk about in her chart is that there was something else too before I get into the other part. So she has Venus in Capricorn, and it's in semi-square to Uranus in Scorpio. And Uranus rules that second house. Venus rules her 10th house, dealing with career, but it also rules her 5th house. And it starts in her 4th house. So there's that family theme again. Her basically being the one that has to be responsible, has to shoulder the financial burden because Venus is in the 12th house in Capricorn. The fact that Venus is in Capricorn shows that because of money issues, and she's a Capricorn rising, because of money issues, she could end up becoming depressed. And I feel like this is what exactly went down. I feel like it wasn't just about her drinking too much. It was her family that triggered this whole well, it wasn't a meltdown that she had, but she definitely bombed that night. And somebody even said in the audience, they was like, she's not ready. Now, what she should have did when she heard, because she even repeated what she said. She was like, she's not ready. Now, what she should have did, if she was a true comedian, she would have turned that right around on his ass. I know I would have, being a Sagittarius, because I got some comedic shit with me too. Now, I feel like I would have even did a better job than Tiffany Haddish on stage that night. But see, the difference, and the funny thing is, me and her, we're both Capricorn rising. So I know very much about depression being a Capricorn rising. My moon is in Capricorn as well. So some of my viewers, they might not even think that I would get depressed, but truth be told, I get depressed every month, but it's only because of my cycle. So when it's that time of the month, I get really down in the dumps. And that's very common for Capricorn people with strong Capricorn energy. So Capricorn risings, Capricorn sun, Capricorn moon, Venus in Capricorn. So you will just go through these periods of depression, or where you'll feel inadequate, you'll be full of self-doubt, you'll feel like a failure. Or if you're dealing with money issues, you could be really down in the dumps, and it's going to be very hard for somebody to pull you out of it. So like I said, I'm very familiar with depression. I deal with it basically a lot. But the good thing with me is I know that mine is hormonal. Now with Tiffany Haddish, though, it appears that her depression will be triggered by outside influences, namely her family, as evidenced by the moon in Gemini making a quincunx to her Capricorn ascendant. And her ascendant is at the 8th degree, which reinforces that Capricorn. And it reinforces the theme of responsibility, all that. So she basically, like I said, she's shouldering the financial burden of some of her family members. And it's starting to really get to her, because she said that basically her family members, they are showing her that they're unappreciative. And she said something like if she needed help, they wouldn't be there for her, or when she needed help, they weren't there for her, or whatever like that. So now the difference between me and her being Capricorn rising. So she's a Capricorn rising and her Saturn's in Virgo. I'm a Capricorn rising and my Saturn is in Leo. So when it comes to being able to perform, I can basically hold it together. Let's say if I was a stage performer with my Saturn in Leo and it's in the seventh house, I could be able to like hold it together more and still put a good face out there and put my best foot forward and still give people a good show. However, Tiffany's Saturn is in Virgo. So if she's stressed out, like very stressed out, if she's very tired, if she's depressed or whatever, she's going to have a hard time masking it with that Saturn in Virgo. And that's exactly what was basically showing. That was like that Saturn in Virgo was showing its ass that night of that performance. And we all know how Virgos have this natural inclination to complain and to bitch and to just be hypercritical and all this stuff, even though, and the thing is with Virgo is very helpful. But Virgo will also complain at the same time about having to help people. So that is exactly what's going on with Tiffany Haddish. She's a Sagittarius. Like I said, Sagittarius is very generous. But then she has this Virgo energy in the eighth house, helping out people financially, and it really starts to chip away at her joy. Now, being a Sagittarius, she is just naturally a joyous person, but all signs can get down in the dump. And with this Capricorn influence, it shows that, she can really get down in the dump. So I see her as going through, being depressed. Now, she responded after that and she said, yes, this happened. I wish it was better in Miami. I prayed on it and I have a strong feeling this will never happen again. Tiffany Haddish, bombs, drinks with fans instead. So just like a true Sagittarius might, have a bad night, might even humiliate themselves, make a mess of things, be like, fail in some way. But then Sagittarius quickly picks himself up, quickly dusts themselves off. And that's what I see with Tiffany Haddish. Like, she's not going to allow this to keep her down. Now, some other things in her chart. She has Mercury parallel Psyche, and that can deal with problems with her mental health, because Psyche can deal with receiving emotional wounds that impact your mental health. So the fact that she has Mercury parallel Psyche can deal with that, but that can also deal with her sister or even relatives like doing shit to her that like really fuck with her, and that being a source of mental turmoil. Her sun is conjoined to Estrella. So remember I said about her being generous. Well, that sun conjoined to Estrella can mean that she's generous to a fault. So she probably has done a ton of things for her family, and now it's getting to the point where they're becoming codependent, or they probably already are, that Mercury and Scorpio. And that Mercury and Scorpio conjoined to Uranus, that's entitlement. So she has a sister and perhaps other relatives that have this huge sense of entitlement towards her, which is pretty messed up. So she has Venus conjoined to Hebe. So I'm thinking that at some point she might adopt a child, but it can also deal with her growing up around a bunch of children that weren't, related to her. And she might have issues with being able to have her own children, because Venus is ruling the fifth through Taurus. And with Venus conjoined to Hebe, she might not be able to have children of her own, or it might be very difficult for her. Now, the moon is running contraparallel to the asteroid Diana, that deals with her going through the foster care system and them searching for a home for her, because Diana deals with what you're hunting for, but it can also deal with times where she was looking for her mother. Also, she has Neptune parallel Arachne, and Arachne could deal with where you weave a web of deceit, a web of drama, And in her case, with this particular situation, a web of humiliation. So, but like I said, I don't see her, staying down for long because of this. She has Chiron opposing Hidalgo. And I knew that Hidalgo was going to be prominent in her chart just off of her being very controversial with some of the stuff she says. And also, even like that performance last night. So her Chiron is in Taurus and it's opposed to Hidalgo. And that could, because Chiron's in Taurus in the fourth house, that's her talking trash about her family. Because Hidalgo means it represents where you got to get your, whatever needs to be said, you're going to say it regardless of regardless of who's listening, regardless of how someone feels about it and all that. Her ascendant is conjoined to Fasces, which is a very challenging fixed star, and that can point to situations where she will trip herself up. She might even end up. Did she get into a bad accident? Somebody confirm that. If she got into a bad accident, it might have been a car accident, and she seriously hurt herself. Let me know in the comments section if y'all heard anything about that. But yeah, she has Venus conjoined to Icarus, which could represent her not being not financial. Let me sorry, I keep tripping over my word. Where she's not financially savvy, she has an issue with financial management, so she might throw caution to the wind when it comes to spending money. Or, like I said, it could be other people, reaching their hands out, talking about I need this, I need that, and she doesn't really consider the consequences. She gives the money, and then next thing you know, she looks at her bottom line. She looks at her checking account, and she's like, damn, I gave away all this money this past month. Her ascendant is opposed to the Arabic part of fortune, and that could deal with other people coming after her money. So, yeah, she has it pretty bad. I feel pretty bad for her, especially because she's prone to depression. And with that Pisces South Node, she's just naturally inclined to make sacrifices for others. It's in the second house, financial sacrifices. She's just naturally prone to be a martyr, to basically put herself last while other people get what they need. And also the humiliation theme is very strong with that Pisces South Node. And then, like I said, the addiction. I wouldn't be surprised if she has a bad problem with alcoholism. So that's that. Now let me get into her transit. So on the night that she had the performance, there was some interesting things going down. Now, Uranus had just entered her fourth house, as you can see, not too long ago, and that could bring strife within the family unit. It could bring problems with home. Let me get my notes. Hold on. And then also, what's interesting is she's going through her Pluto square Pluto transit. That transit is a motherfucker. Excuse my French, but I've been through it. Things that you thought were secure in your life, things that you thought you were sure of, basically you will be left wondering what the hell is going on. Basically, this Pluto square Pluto transit can turn your life upside down. Maybe not your entire life, but certain things about your life may be changing and changing in a profound way. You could be dealing with some detractors. You could be dealing with betrayal. In Tiffany Haddish's case, this looks like a situation involving financial responsibility and her family, because Pluto's at the 20th degree. That 20 degree represents family, but it also represents awakening. So it's like she's had an awakening with respect to her family, basically exploiting her, using her for money. So with this Pluto square Pluto, it will also cause somebody to say, you know what, enough is enough. I'm done. I'm not doing this no more. It's over. And a lot of times the person won't ever go back to the bullshit. So she's dealing with a lot of bullshit right now with this Pluto square Pluto, and it came out through her performance on New Year's Eve. She got all this Capricorn energy transiting her first house, the Sun, Saturn, Pluto, South Node. The Sun had just entered her first house a couple of days prior, so that's like the spotlight being on her. But when the sun is in your first house, that's when you can really show your ass and act a fool if you're not careful. You could be all up at, your ego could be getting the best of you, all that type of stuff. But with the Capricorn influence, Sun and Capricorn, especially Saturn as well, the two of them being conjoined, that's like being subject to heavy public scrutiny. And where, some people might be tearing you apart, tearing you down, denigrating you, where your reputation is at stake as well. All while these planets are transiting her first house, her reputation is going to be at stake. The same goes for me as well. So I got the same hookup transiting my first house. So I know that I better watch what I say. I better watch what I do. I better not, pick fights with people and stuff like that, because shit can really fall back on you when you got you got two heavy hitters in the first house. You got the South Node transiting first, and then the sun just basically brings things to life. So yeah, she had it crazy going on that night. Also, Jupiter was right on her sun, only less than 1 degree away. So it was moving away from her sun, but that's enough to add fuel to the fire, with her already being rather reckless. Oh, I forgot to mention this too. So her sun is at the 10th degree of Sagittarius, and that 10th degree, like I said before, that's like the free ride degree. You can get a lot of benefits through your association. So that makes me think of Kevin Hart. And she got Cancer on the 7th, which can represent Kevin Hart basically being in her corner and all that stuff. I'm thinking that Kevin Hart's going to continue to support her and help her to get back on track because of that. She got Cancer on the 7th. I forget Kevin Hart's birthday, so I can't remember if his sun, matter of fact, let me check real quick to see where his sun falls, whether it's in the 6th or the 7th with her. If it's in the 6th, it would make a lot of sense because he has helped her. He's like, he works with her, all that type of stuff. But let me just see. Do I even have his chart? Yeah, here we go. Okay, so Kevin Hart's sun is at the 13th degree of Cancer. So that puts it in her 7th house. So that could deal with a partnership. Now also, so she's going through her Pluto square Pluto transit right now, but this is the last run of that transit. So she won't have to go through this anymore. She went through that Pluto square Pluto transit hit up her chart a few times. And then she had, back to Jupiter on her sun. So she's a Sagittarius. As you know, Jupiter is in Sagittarius right now, and her Jupiter's right on her sun. So this is exactly what I was telling people about during my Jupiter in Sagittarius live stream, where I was saying, don't expect Jupiter to be a bowl of cherries or where everything is all good and you're just getting all these blessings and all this good fortune and stuff. Do you see what happened with Tiffany Haddish with Jupiter on her sun? It just caused her to be more out there, reckless, wanton, irresponsible. And also the theme of excess is strong with Sagittarius. So she could have been drinking excessively. And that Jupiter on her sun does, can represent the nationwide tour that, she's on. I'm not sure if Miami was the first city that she went to. So it can be good in that it represents that nationwide tour. But that Jupiter on her sun calls her to show her ass on stage and have that I don't give a fuck type of attitude. And where, like I said, she might have been hitting the bottle hard, all of that stuff. And Jupiter on her sun can deal with, she probably came out of her pocket big time during the Christmas holiday. And now she was probably on a high too. Talk about Merry Christmas, giving everybody checks and stuff, giving people gift cards, giving people all these crazy presents and stuff. And then when she looked at her bank account on December 26th, she was probably like, what? And then when her sister called her on December 28th and was like, I need your new refrigerator, she was like, bitch, what? I just did all this stuff. I just bought you all this stuff, bought your kids a whole bunch of clothes. I did all this, I did all that. But then again, a lot of times Sagittarius, we're so nice. We will keep things in until we get to the point where we explode. because we really don't like, creating waves. We really don't like when people got bad feelings towards us and stuff like that. So she probably let things slide and slide and slide and slide, and then boom. She probably even, talk to her sister the way she really wanted to talk to her, express how she really felt. And instead it came out on stage. Where's my note? I just lost my note. But I think I'm going to just close out here because y'all get the point. Oh, here, let me see if I'm, oh yeah, here's some more. So also the North, as you can see, the North Node in Cancer in the 7th house is squaring her midheaven. South Node in the 1st house. Remember, I was talking about this Capricorn energy in the 1st house, squaring the midheaven. This deals with that fiasco, that her bombing on stage, and basically impacting her reputation in a negative way. Chiron transiting her 3rd house. 3rd house deals with communication, and Queen comes to the midheaven. So saying things or being even neglectful, because Chiron's in Pisces. Pisces is a sign of neglect. Not doing what you're supposed to be doing, but that can also deal with her being drunk, because Chiron's in Pisces. So she could have been hitting the bottle really hard, and that impacted her ability to successfully perform. All right. So yeah. Oh, and North Node transiting her 7th house in Cancer. That's like her publicizing her family drama. So yeah. So that's basically Tiffany Haddish. Oh, another thing that's really telling. Transiting Pluto is right on her progressed sun right now. So her progressed sun is at, here it is right here, her progressed chart. So her progressed sun is at 20 degrees Capricorn, and transiting Pluto is right on her progressed sun. So that could deal with where your reputation is getting tarnished, you're being dragged through the mud, where your career is being threatened. Like, you're at the point now where, your career feels threatened. And also where, you're creating some type of controversy. And that Pluto on her sun can deal with people basically depending upon her for financial support, her feeling like she got to be responsible for these other people in her life and all that type of stuff. Maybe in 2019, she'll learn how to break free and start saying no. A lot of times Sagittarius does have a hard time saying no. But I will say this, with her being a Capricorn rising, and Capricorns can have a really good sense of humor. A lot of times it's dry and sarcastic. But again, her chart ruler is Saturn in Virgo. And that's part of the reason why she's not a natural comedian. Because that Saturn in Virgo can deal with and it's in the 9th house. So the 9th house deals with comedy. But with Saturn in Virgo there, that's like she was trained to be a comedian. She's not a natural comedian like Eddie Murphy, Martin Lawrence, Chris Tucker, who else? You know who's the natural comedian. I would even say like Kevin Hart. I don't even think he's that funny, but he definitely is a natural comedian. Like he can hold his own on stage, I believe, without having to follow some script or have pre-written lines. And like this other YouTuber was saying, the mark of a true comedian is if they do forget their lines, if they do go off script, they will still have the audience laughing and stitches and all that stuff. And if they get heckled, they could come right back with some, crazy shit to have people on their ass laughing. So she can't do that. She can't really hold her own on stage without a pre-written script where she has memorized it and all that. So let me know what you think in the comments section. Again, I feel kind of bad for Tiffany Haddish, but she's a Sagittarius. She's going to bounce back. She'll be fine after she gets over the initial humiliation. But don't be surprised if she humiliates herself several times throughout her career with that Pisces South Node that she has. Also, that Pisces South Node can deal with her having a tough time in Hollywood because Pisces does rule Hollywood. Now, she, has humiliated herself talking about she tried to have sex with Leonardo DiCaprio, and she tried to go out on a date with Drake, I think she said, and both of them turned her down. So it's like she's just used to humiliating herself. She's also about that self-deprecation, and that works well with humor. But she's just self-deprecating, period. She is coming from a place of having very little to no self-worth. So she really needs to be built up and helped in some type of way. I wouldn't be surprised if she goes to counseling. She might really need to go. But I am seeing some serious mental health issues, in particular with Pisces on the 3rd, Neptune and Sagittarius in the 12th. The good thing is Neptune's not really afflicted, but that, that alone, having the ruler of the 3rd house in the 12th, now that works for Hollywood and comedians, but how are you when you're not on stage? That's where it could be rather tragic. And that's why you got a lot of actors, comedians, and performers in general. When it comes to their private life, it could be pretty messed up, but like on stage, they could be stellar. So I just wanted to put that out there with her. Also contributing to her mental health, you got Jupiter as co-ruler of her 3rd in Virgo, conjoined to Mars in the 8th. So she's definitely dealing with some serious mental health issues. So hopefully, she'll get some help for it if she hasn't already. But the depression thing with her is real. And I'm a living witness to Capricorn's power to inflict depression upon people. And when you get in that depressed state, like how she was in, there's really nothing that can be done to pull you out of it. And then if you drink, it's just going to make you feel worse. Like, how some people could drink and then they become the happy drunk? Well, someone with strong Capricorn energy, they might be happy and like joking for a minute, but then that depression is going to get deeper with the alcohol. So again, let me know what you think in the comment section. And if you would like a reading, you could go to my website at rabina.com. I'll be back with more videos. Peace and many blessings.